Tell us where things stand right now. I thought the headline out of your numbers this morning was fascinating, that the Conservatives are riding a high they haven't seen in so long, and yet, it probably will not, at least according to these numbers, be enough.
It's just not enough. You know, the thing is when we look at the CTV News Globe and Mail tracking, it's 44-39 for the Liberals. And you know what? Look at that 39 number, Vashi. Stephen Harper, 2011, majority government, that's what he had when he formed. So, you know, for all those Conservatives that go out to the rallies and think and say, hey, this feels like we're winning, these polls can't be wrong. Well, you know what? They're correct. The polls are right, but they're correct also because, you know, we haven't seen support within an election for the Conservatives at this level for such a long time. But what those folks at those Conservative rallies don't see is the collapse of the NDP, the drop of the Bloc, and how that's benefited the Liberals. And we're in this bizarro world where 39% for any party is not enough to win an election and the greatest number of seats in the House of Commons.
We'll talk about the seats for a moment, because how does the efficiency of that popular vote translate for both of them?
Yeah, the thing is that, you know, for the Conservatives, because they're like 30 points ahead in the prairies, it's just inefficient. All that extra support that they have that bumps up their national numbers is not good at converting into seats compared to the Liberals when we look at the different regions where they're like 5 and 10 percentage points ahead of the Conservatives. So, you know, the thing is for the Tories, they not only have to tie the Liberals, they actually need to be ahead of the Liberals in order to garner a greater number of seats.
The other thing that sticks out to me when I see how high the level of popular support for those two parties is, like, how many undecided people are left at this point?
Not a lot. Actually, it's much lower, Vashi, than we've seen in previous elections. It's in the single digits. Usually at this point in the election, I've been doing nightly tracking since 2004, about 12 to 16% of Canadians are undecided. When we look at the undecided now, you can see only about 1 in 20 are undecided. However, those are the people that say that they are absolute decided. They're not even leaning towards any political parties. But in other research that we did with CTV News and the Globe and Mail suggested that 1 out of every 5 or 20% could change their mind going into the end of the campaign. And this is where the debate becomes critical.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the debate and in what way. I mean, I know that there's sort of like a conventional way of looking at it, like who lands a knockout blow, who gets all the social media attraction. But ultimately, are the stakes for, in particular, Carney and Poilievre dependent on, different expectations? Are they dependent on maybe just escaping that knockout blow? Like, what is your view on that?
I think the expectations are different for Carney and for Poilievre. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the Liberal fortunes are directly tied to the personality and the performance of Mark Carney, right? It's not because people like the Liberals. It's not because they're happy with what they've seen over the last 10 years. It's because Mark Carney has been grafted. I don't know if there's a graphic, but he's been grafted on top of the Liberal Party. So his performance will be critical. He doesn't necessarily need to win, but he can't lose. For Pierre Poilievre, the reality is he is leading a movement of change for people that want the Liberals out. So, for Pierre Poilievre, he is a vehicle. He is an instrument to punish the Liberals and to get the Liberals out of power. So I think there's probably less stress for Pierre Poilievre than Mark Carney. And I think the language dynamic is another kind of wild card in this, in that what Mark Carney has to make sure is he doesn't have some sort of blooper that ends up being an attack ad in Quebec that could be used probably by the Bloc, because in the province of Quebec, the relationship primarily is between the Liberals and the Bloc. The Liberals go down and the Bloc are more likely to go up than the Conservatives.
Can I conclude on a question about that in the parties that are all the rest, essentially, at this point? The Bloc, the Greens, the NDP, and in particular maybe the NDP, because their fortunes have fallen faster than almost any other party. How can this debate change anything for them in a tangible way?
I don't think so. I think it's actually... It could change it for the front runners, because the question is for Blanchette, for Jagmeet Singh, for those leaders, especially those two leaders, they could do damage to either one of the front runners. And I think that's going to be the one thing to watch. Whether they can turn around their political fortunes, it's really hard to tell right now.
Okay, I'll leave it on that. Nik, thanks so much. I appreciate it. The Chief Data Scientist and founder of Nanos Research, Nik Nanos.